First Nations TV, your news first.
Rising sea levels due to global warming are already taking a toll on the world's low-lying lands and populations, and much sooner than expected. Close to home, the impact on the islands of Torres Strait has been more than alarming. In 2021, Uncle Pabai Pabai and Uncle Paul Kabai, traditional owners from Boigu and Saibai Islands, launched a landmark class action against the Commonwealth Government to force acknowledgement of its duty of care to protect citizens from the consequences of climate change. Recently, in Cairns, the federal court judged that there is no duty of care, nor are there the legal avenues through which individuals and communities can claim damages for climate harm. It was a devastating result for Uncle Pabai Pabai, Uncle Paul, and Dr. Auntie McRose Elu.
My heart is broken for my families and my community.
Where is the duty of care from government? We will be the first climate refugees in Australia.
So what is the big picture when it comes to rising sea levels?
Sea level rise is probably one of the biggest climate change problems facing humanity, but it's a complex problem, and it's not just about how fast it's moving, but also the melting that's occurring.
There is no debate that Earth is warming up. 16 out of 17 of the hottest years ever on record have been since 2001. NASA estimates there is a 95% probability that this current warming is a direct result of human activity since the mid-20th century. As a result of this, ice around the world is melting and raising the planet's sea levels. They rose by 19 centimeters during the 20th century. NOAA estimates that global sea levels could rise by up to 2.5 meters by the year 2100, which would have devastating consequences.
Climate change, leading to rising sea levels, will eventually affect countless low-lying coastal habitats, villages, towns, and major cities. But it is in our immediate Pacific region that the impact is being felt right now. The Marshall Islands, Tuvalu, Fiji, and the Kiribati, just to name a few. The fight for recognition and international justice for the islands continues.
The low-lying islands of the South Pacific are among the most climate-threatened places on Earth. We're sharing stories of climate impacts in our communities.
The effort that it takes to feed your family is becoming increasingly harder. People have to...
And how we can support each other in fighting for climate justice.
To climate-impacted communities, you aren't alone in your fight to preserve culture. In fact, there are people all around the world fighting for the very same thing.
Climate justice! Climate justice!
Since 2021, a dedicated group of Torres Strait Islander elders have worked tirelessly to raise awareness and put the Australian government on notice.
And our great-grandfathers used to come here. Where the water is there now, we used to camp there. And the beach was used to be where the dead mangroves laying there.
Lying at just 1.6 metres above sea level, Saibai Island and its neighbours are on the front line of climate change.
In monsoon, when it's high tide or king tide, if I'm standing here, water can be up here.
For the past 4 years, Uncle Paul Kabai and other islanders have been fighting a landmark case against the federal government, arguing it has a duty of care to protect them from the rising seas.
The government got to listen to what we're asking to reduce the gas emission. If we reduce that, we'll have a better future for our kids.
The court travelled to the islands to witness the erosion of these gravestones firsthand. Locals like 10-year-old Shakana are doing what they can to mitigate the impacts of climate change. She's raising money by collecting bottles for sandbags.
And this one I have cans, and over this one I think about like 1,000 maybe in here. When we get the money from the people, we're gonna buy sandbags to stick around the graveyard to protect the loved ones who are buried there.
But she fears her people will one day need to leave the island.
And that would be really sad for us because loved ones are buried here. And we don't want to lose the culture we've grown here.
The landmark litigation has been financed through the NGO The Grata Fund, whose team met with the community late last year to talk through the possible outcomes.
This case is going to be globally significant if it wins. It will be saying that the Australian government has to take steps to deal with the impacts of climate change on people in the Torres Strait.
It's helping my people, my community, in any other ways that we can do to enforce that.
If we don't get our emissions down rapidly by mid-century, then it's a pretty horrific future for Torres Strait Islanders.
What we're saying is that the Commonwealth owes a duty of care to Pabai and Paul and all of Torres Strait Islanders to take reasonable steps to protect them.
In 2022, the UN Human Rights Committee found that Australia violated the rights of Torres Strait Islanders by failing to protect them from the impacts of climate change.
In its decision, the UN committee called on Australia to compensate Torres Strait Islanders for the harm caused to their physical and spiritual home, saying the government should do more to address the impacts of climate change there. Soon after the change in government, the Prime Minister, as well as the Ministers for Indigenous Australians and Climate Change, met with elders about the impacts of the changing climate.
We want the government to come and sit so we can talk straight to the head. You know, we really don't want no band-aid solution. We want something that it will work and it will be beneficial for our people.
The federal government has acknowledged the Torres Strait Islands are vulnerable to the effects of climate change. But it says Australia can't prevent or mitigate these effects on its own, and the question of its duty of care is for the Parliament to decide.
And so now, in the first climate class action brought on behalf of First Nations peoples, the federal court has ruled that the government does not owe the Torres Strait Islanders a duty of care when it comes to climate policy.
Governmental conduct and decisions which involve matters of high or core government policy are not properly or appropriately made the subject of common law duties of care.
However, Justice Wigney went on to criticise the government's emissions reduction targets.
When it set Australia's greenhouse gas emissions in those 3 years, the Commonwealth paid scant, if any, regard to the best available science.
The court couldn't take the step we needed it today, but it will eventually, because we will push the law and we will push our politicians until they do the right thing. We will win.
We will keep on fighting because we will get that victory, yes, so.
An appeal to the judgment is expected, so this story is far from over.
Love has driven us on this journey. Love will keep driving us. Eso, Murabuai.
First Nations TV, your news first.